Welcome to the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer. Each week on their show, they help authors create books that transform our lives and imaginations. Through radio excellence, they create a unique community resource, one that promotes, connects, and fosters a sense of well-being. They serve listeners by providing outlets for their creative skills and energies, and they help them flourish in the competitive marketplace. Their weekly show provides intros, writing spotlights, helps you in promoting your book, your writing, your publishing, your marketing tidbits, and much more. Okay, audience, here's the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer.
Okay, welcome to Author's Edge Show. Join us for lively conversations with writers, publishers, songwriters, illustrators, and artists diving into the art of storytelling. Catch us live Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH-FM 929 and KXOK-FM 1029, or stream online at KXOK1029.com, KWRH929.com, and via free apps, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. The show also airs nationwide Monday to Friday at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. on the My Genre Radio Network. Missed an episode? Find us anytime on SoundCloud, YouTube, or at authorsedge.org. Now, that's authorsedge.org. Today, we are excited to welcome an author whose path to storytelling is as colorful as the tales he writes. Whoopee-ki-yay. Let me tell you a little more about him in a moment. But before we do, again, I want to welcome Mark, who's here with us doing his magic behind the scenes, my driver, who felt like coming up with the rain in spite of the rain, and Doug, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to be in the studio again. But I want to step back and get to know Doug a little bit better. Doug Osgood. Doug comes by his love of storytelling naturally from his paternal grandfather, a Wesleyan Methodist preacher who sprinkled his sermons with stories only, wink, wink, mildly exaggerated to his maternal grandfather, a crack shot who could shoot a dancing tick. Now, let me get this right. A dancing tick off the back of a racing deer at 100 yards, who regularly exchanged fish stories with friends over a game of draughts. Sunday dinners with the whole family was the time for everyone to laugh over family anecdotes and spin yards and tall tales, which we will get into. Born in Western New York, he moved his wife and young son to the St. Louis area via a Conestoga wagon or a Dodge Shadow in 93. We are going to get to that because that's also going to be very interesting, where he still resides. Like many of the Old West's characters, his trails in life have been many. He has shepherded a flock as a pastor, ridden night herd over 250 rambunctious young men as a college residence hall director, which I kind of would like to have been part of. 250 young college rambunctious men.
Very interesting experience.
That would have been delightful. Corralled young soccer stars as a referee. Rustled grub in his fifth wheel on the road with his sweetheart, and a pair of grub-hogging pups of questionable heritage, which is all wonderful. But I want to get back to that covered wagon, prairie schooner. Tell me, this is, first off, you're sitting here with all of these Western stories and there's no cowboy hat. What the heck is with that?
I confess I thought about wearing one today, but I had to start at the office, and my tax clients might, let's just say it. I don't wear it to the office much. So I did wear it Monday, though. I was at a conference continuing ed conference talking about the new tax law bill. And I did wear it then. And it made a great collection for the
And
50-50
no
drawings.
6-shooter?
I do own a gun, one, but it was my grandfather's, the one who could shoot, and it hasn't been fired in 50 years since he passed.
Oh, well, you don't want to do that.
No.
Okay, now I need to know this Dodge Shadow, this Prairie Schooner. Tell me about this.
So my wife and I had taken a job in South Carolina working for a small college there. My actual degree is in religion. I pastored a church right out of college. I'm a lousy pastor. I have no compassion. I can teach, I can preach, I can do those things, but my level of compassion changes as it goes from, gosh, you're in a really bad situation, to, gosh, you're just whining, and and so that probably didn't sit real well. So anyway, so I took a job in South Carolina to go back to school, study accounting, and part of my position was running the men's residence hall. And I did that through May of 93. And then I took a job here in St. Louis. So we loaded up a Dodge Shadow with my wife and I.
Actual covered wagon?
No. It was just a Dodge Shadow. It was a 1991 or 2 Dodge Shadow. I just was being facetious when I called it my Conestoga wagon.
I'm sitting here thinking a real one.
Yeah, no. My boss has a real Conestoga wagon.
Oh, yeah?
In the front of the office. And it gets borrowed periodically by Cottleville for their summer freedom days, and but it is a real Conestoga wagon.
I'm sitting here being super gullible.
I'm sorry. But the Dodge Shadow, I mean, we had a lot of belongings, and the Dodge Shadow really isn't much bigger than this table, with my wife and I in the front seat, and our, at that point, 4-year-old son in the back in his car seat. There wasn't a whole lot of room for all of our stuff.
Yeah, I would think not.
But so then we moved to St. Louis and for a different job. So that's
you've been here since then.
And we've been here since then.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved here in the flood of 93, which was interesting in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. That would have been exciting.
We had leased an apartment already out in St. Charles, and I swear every time it came on CBS Evening News that there was more flooding in St. Charles, I was on the phone with the apartment complex. You're safe, right? I mean, we're good. We're still good to move in May, at the end of May, and they're way up on the hill, so they were. But that there were some anxious moments.
Oh, I would think so. Absolutely, I would definitely think so. Now, your father sounds like a walking story machine.
My grandfather?
Yes, your grandfathers.
Yes, both grandfathers.
Right.
Yes.
Did you inherit more preacher exaggeration or sharpshooter swagger?
More preacher exaggeration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain that.
So I'm a storyteller. I've been teaching tax for years, going back 20 some odd years. And I always, because tax is boring, there is very little in life that's less exciting than tax. And I taught evening classes, and people have worked all day and they're adults. They're they're in their mid 30s, mid 40s, mid 50s, whatever. And tax can get a little dry, and so in order to keep them awake, I mixed in a lot of stories. And 28 years in the tax business, I have a lot of stories.
Yeah. And
some of them are good, some of them are not so good. But I mixed in all of that to keep the class awake and alive and going. So, but they were definitely more.
So how do you mix in stories with taxes?
It's interesting, the things that come up. I have a note I keep in my desk drawer. I've kept it. I've got it, I don't know, 10 years ago, I guess. One of my clients dropped off a tax return, and he had slipped a little square 3x3 note inside, and it said, make up whatever to exempt, whatever deductions you need. And I just thought, seriously, you're asking me to do this? Do you not know that that would never happen? But but that's become a humorous story that I've told and told and told over the years. And I do keep the little slip of paper in my desk just as a reminder that you have to pay attention. And
Yes.
so, yeah. Anyways, but that's how you do it. I mean, you just take you take everyday situations and you make them humorous. And my wife is as good at that as I am, maybe better. So,
So honestly, which grandfather would you least want to play poker with?
ooh, that's a really good question. The preacher.
The preacher?
Yeah.
Why?
Um,
I would think he'd be.
well, he didn't play cards. I mean, he was a Wesleyan Methodist, so that was never allowed.
That, yeah, I would think
Right.
not.
But in terms of his ability to keep a straight face while he's telling a humorous story, he had a poker face to beat the band. My mom's father, he told all kinds of stories. He was never without a story, but his stories were hunting, they were fishing, they were fights he had as a kid. He grew up on an Indian reservation in Western New York, and so there were conflicts there, and so he told all those stories, but they were not. He didn't twist them to be funny or to and he didn't have a poker face per se.
So they were maybe funny in of themselves.
In themselves, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, all right, with the preacher, what kind of stories would he tell? Give me an example. Can you give me an example?
Boy,
Like,
Grandpa's
that would be like straight face, but it would be.
Boy, now that's a hard question. I don't know that I one specific story. Gosh, Grandpa's been
All right,
gone since
I'll let you
94.
think about it, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah,
How's
come
that?
back to that. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think our listeners would love to hear something. All right.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
that mull around in the brain
Yeah, I will.
somewhere.
I'll have to rattle around.
Many authors cite books and specific authors who drew them to write. Who were your early inspirations?
Oh, wow. So, as my mother got polio in 1953, 10 years before I was born. And so she was very anxious, a lot of anxiety. And even though I grew up in a small town where literally everybody knew everybody, I mean, I couldn't do anything in town without mom knowing about it long before I got home.
I know. I hear you.
Yeah, I know. I get that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's just small town life. But
yeah.
but I wasn't really allowed to go anywhere unless it was the library or an errand for grandma and grandpa or mom. So I spent a lot of time at the library. That was my escape, and books were my escape. And so one of my first books that I fell in love with was James Wallerstein's Trail of Danger, about three boys, two brothers, and this young man that kind of stumbled into the family who came from a very troubled background, and then they're kidnapped and held in a basement, and they escape. And the odd man out, his father picks them up. Turns out he's an ex-convict, and they were kidnapped because his people were after his dad. So I probably took that out of the library a dozen times when I was in my early teens. Read it. Lewis, and I can never say this last name, Slobodkin. I don't know. It's Slobdokkin, something like that. Wrote a series about an Earthling named Eddie and an alien named Marty. And the first one of those that I read was Round Trip Spaceship, about Marty taking Eddie out to his home planet. Fascinating story for me as a young teen. I again read that over and over again. Later I read the books that preceded it, but they didn't intrigue me as much as that last one.
So when did you get involved in Westerns?
My grandfather, the shootist, he had a collection of Zane Greys, which I now own. But he would always at night when he would sit down in his rocker with a cigar. Very often, if it wasn't the newspaper, it was a Zane Grey. And so that was my first introduction to Western novels.
Uh-huh.
My father, he and I didn't connect a lot. He was a get your hands dirty kind of guy. He was a mechanic. He farmed. He had given up farming at that point, but he had a huge garden in the back that he spent every night in the summer tending. And I never liked getting my hands dirty, and I still don't. I'm 62 and I don't like getting my hands dirty. So, but we would connect on Saturday night over Gunsmoke.
Oh,
And-
I remember that.
Yeah.
That yeah, absolutely. I loved Gunsmoke.
Yep. And we would watch without fail. We watched every Saturday night Gunsmoke, and that was our together.
The Rifleman.
No, the Rifleman had gone off by the time I was really watching.
See, I connected with the
Oh
Rifleman.
yeah, Chuck Connor. Yeah.
Yep. Rifleman, Gunsmoke.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, those were, and I obviously watched those later on.
Right.
But Gunsmoke was the only one we watched. He faithfully never missed it.
Never missed.
So that's my early
So
connection
that
to
was
Westerns.
that's your inspiration?
That was. Then in college, I picked up my first Louis L'Amour.
Oh.
And I still to this day, I read Louis L'Amour over almost any other Western writer. My apologies to my friends who are Western writers. And I own all of Louis L'Amour's novels.
Uh-huh.
And when I need something just for some light, quick reading, I'll pick up a Louis L'Amour. Yep. So.
Okay, I got to do a radio identifier before I get in trouble. You're listening to Author's Edge, where stories come to life. I'm your host, Gael Freer, and today I'm chatting with wonderfully talented Doug Osgood, also known as DN Sample. We've got a lot to unpack about his new novel, his colorful journey, and maybe even a few tall tales along the way. So stick with us. Now, your roots are clearly shaped as a storyteller. Let's talk about how you actually took that leap into writing. Now, this is your first novel.
This is my first novel.
Okay, what prompted you to write a novel?
So I've always wanted to write. I mean, I would start novels like a lot of teenagers who want to write, and I'd get 14, 15 pages in and stop.
Right.
So I've always had those thoughts. Well, in 2014, my father-in-law was dying from leukemia, and my wife and I purchased a fifth wheel, the truck that I'm driving, and we traveled to New York so that she took a temporary job there. I left my job in the tax business, and I was looking for something to do. And I thought, I've always wanted to do it. I'm going to take the leap. So February of 14, I took a novel writing class out at St. Charles Community College. It was an adult ed class, no college credit for it. Just, say I forget now if it was 6 or 8 weeks, but my instructor she was just wonderful. And there were 4 of us in the class. And I wrote originally was intended to be the first chapter during that class. Well, now it's like chapter 7 or 8. I don't remember where it is, but it's in there. So that was the prompt, because I was looking for something to do. I knew I wasn't going to be doing taxes if we're traveling across the country.
Right.
I could work during tax season because I'm an enrolled agent. Everybody's looking for enrolled agents, but that's 3 months. And then what do I do? So I just took the leap and started writing.
Okay. Cold Powder Vengeance took you 11 years.
11 years.
Overcoming obstacles along the way. Can you tell us what about those?
Sure. So I finished Cold Powder Vengeance. It was under a different title at the time, but it was this I finished the first draft in December of 15, and then I polished it, took it to a writers conference, Ozark Creative Writers. You were there last year. We actually crossed paths back there.
Oh,
back
yeah.
there. I took it there, had 2 different publishers interested. I went with the more established publisher. And then in January of 2017, she went under. health reasons. But she didn't give any of her authors our rights back. So we were, and it wasn't me. I mean, she had a stable of writers, authors who, some of them had published works out there. Some of them like myself were in the midst of getting their book finished. But she didn't give any rights back. And of course, that makes it impossible for us to get a new publisher or even to self-publish at that point. So it took me, we had to wait a period of time. It ended up being 2 years, and then I hired an attorney, and he was able to get my rights back. Well, that first publisher who knew the story, or the other publisher that I had expressed interest in the book, he knew what was going on. And so he reached out to me and asked if I was interested. And so I signed with him, and then the pandemic hit and not much was going on in the publishing world. And I started delving into other projects, and this kind of languished on my hard drive. Yeah. And so he reached out to me a year ago in August through my now my developmental editor, Anthony Wood. And he said, let's get that going. So I polished it up and had it to him in December, early January, and the rest is history.
All right. You've worn hats as a pastor, as a hall director, as a referee, as a road warrior. When did you finally say, yeah, writer's hat fits best?
It would have been 2014. I mean, writing doesn't pay the bills yet. So I still do taxes and have been for 28 years now. But and some of these other things I did along the line while I was still doing taxes, refereeing and road warrioring. But in 2014, I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. That's the end goal. And my boss knows that, but she also knows that, it's tough to pay the bills as an author, and she's okay with that. If New York City comes knocking, she knows I'm gone.
Yeah. Which job gives you the most material?
Oh boy. It's amazing the things that your tax clients will tell you. We, short of Father Confessor, we are the next best thing. My clients tell me things that they wouldn't want their spouse to know about them. And so I no doubt in my mind, not all of my source material, but a lot of my source material comes from my clients.
Which one gives you the most headache?
Is that deductible?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly right.
Which one gives you the most headaches?
Tax work.
Yeah. Both.
Yeah. It's on both ends of that spectrum.
Both.
So
Both. I hear you. Does wrangling college kids prepare you better for writing?
I'll tell you what, that was.
Or just refereeing soccer? Which one?
Oh no, college. The college boys. We were the only exclusive men's residence hall on campus, and so the vast majority of the young men on campus lived in our building, and there was a mixture. It was in South Carolina in the early 90s. We had racial tension in the building. We had a lot of urban blacks who were there on athletic scholarships, but their academics were pretty substandard. I joked about this at the time, and I say, when Bill Clinton was elected, he named his education secretary was the education secretary from South Carolina, as I recall. But I remember saying, Arkansas thanks God every day for South Carolina, because that means Arkansas is not the worst educational system in the country. They were ranked 49th at the time. South Carolina was 50th. So, unless you were privileged enough to go to a good high school, even the whites who were from rural areas didn't have much education. And I could tell you all kinds of stories about some of them coming to my wife and I looking for help on papers, and their ability to articulate themselves was pretty poor.
Yeah.
But wonderful young men, all of them. We loved every one of them. My wife would bake cookies, but the stories, the things that would happen in the building, things that would happen that would wake us up in the middle of the night that, are probably not things you can discuss in polite company. I have a lot of stories from my 2.5 years there. I have a disproportionate number of stories.
Okay, we are going to go to a commercial break in a minute. But before we do that, this show is sponsored by Kenita Taylor, author of Dead Fed Said, available in paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. Want to join Kenita in supporting Author's Edge? Become a show sponsor and connect with passionate readers and industry insiders while helping us spotlight great stories and creators. Why sponsor with Author's Edge? Reach thousands of book lovers, boost visibility in sales, target meaningful support, and trusted host endorsements. If you'd like to be a sponsor, call 573-714-1352 and let's chat about how we can feature you on Author's Edge, where authors and readers meet. Also, if you're in Missouri, here's another great opportunity to consider joining the Missouri's Writers Guild, a statewide network funded in 1950 that supports writers through workshops, conferences, contests, local chapters, and professional resources. Members can gain access to a strong literary community and tools to grow their craft. Joining is easy. Just visit MissouriWritersGuild.org and sign up online. Whether you're a seasoned author or just starting out, there's a place for you in the Guild. And now we are going to go to a commercial break.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6922 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchatas and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open Tuesday through Sunday. El Potro, 6922 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland. Find them online at elpotrostl.com.
Merton Services is a heating, air conditioning, and commercial refrigeration business that's been providing exceptional services in St. Louis for over 50 years, and they take pride in providing services and comfort to both residential and commercial customers. With the temperatures rising in the summer and dropping in the winter, your comfort and health can be put in jeopardy. With proper checks and maintenance, Mertens will keep your equipment in top shape. And when it's time to replace your furnace or your air conditioner, they've got you covered. With a wide range of options, Mertens has the perfect HVAC system to fit all of your needs. To find out how the good folks at Mertens Services can help you with all of your HVAC needs, contact Mertens Services at 314-845-1500. That's 314-845-1500. Mertens Services, 314-845-1500.
Okay, and we are back. And I am chatting with Doug Osgood and Author's Edge, and this is Gael Freer, and we're talking about Cold Powder Vengeance. Okay, so we have talked a little bit about who you are and whatnot. So what I would like to do is now talk about some of why you picked Westerns. Okay.
Sure.
So, and your writing process and whatnot. So why Westerns?
As I mentioned earlier, my watching Gunsmoke, I fell in love with Westerns. And with my grandfather and his Zane Greys, and then later Louis L'Amour. I just really loved the genre. And then there have been some great Westerns since then. Kevin Costner in Silverado was such a great story. Yeah. And so to me, they're fun to write. And you don't have to, you can talk about how people really are.
Mhm.
You know, not that you can't in other books, and I read lots of other stuff.
Right.
But there's something about the Western and the romance of the West, but the grittiness of the West. And there
Right.
is that tension because you look at the scenery and the landscape is just gorgeous, but
And
the
it's
lifestyle
unique
is,
to America.
it is.
It is
It
a
is.
unique genre. It's a unique atmosphere. It's something that's just simply unique to America. There's nothing in any other country that has that.
And oddly enough, they're still very popular in other
In other
parts of the
countries.
country.
Hmm.
Yep.
It is. Do you feel like the Western is a dying genre?
No, not at all. Are there as many Westerns as there were when we were growing up? No. You know, we talked earlier about the Rifleman and, you know, and there were tons of, every time you turned on the television, there was a Western playing on one of the stations or another.
And if you can even go back and go to MeTV and watch the reruns.
Oh yeah.
Of,
yeah.
of
And I still do.
multitude of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You write under a pseudonym of DN Sample. Why?
Sample, well, my initials are DNO. And so I took my first two initials and then I took my maternal grandmother's maiden name, Sample. She was a Sample from a small town in Western New York.
Why did you do that?
Just as an homage to Grandma. My main character, his last name is Stone. That was my grandfather, her husband. And so they were very influential in my life. As I mentioned, my mother had polio. So I was always allowed to go to their house. They were 3 doors down, and I hung around with my grandfather a lot. And he was a man's man. I mean, he wasn't, I don't think he weighed 145 pounds, but tough as nails, and self-made. He dropped out of school in 8th grade in 1913 or 1914, something like that. Because his father had left the family. He was the oldest boy and mom needed help.
Right.
So life was hard for them, but they made it and they were successful because he was self-made. They were both tough and gritty, but gentle and wonderful people.
Can you tell us what Cold Powder Vengeance is about?
I can. So Cold Powder Vengeance, oddly enough. Yeah. So that's right. The main character is a homesteader in the Dakota Territory in 1875. He's a veteran of the Civil War, like many men at that time, had fought with the 83rd Pennsylvania Volunteers out of Western Pennsylvania, saw many, many battles, and was tired of, he was trying to escape the war. He'd met a beautiful woman. They had moved west. And the story picks up immediately with her murder. And he was left for dead on the floor of their homestead, their home. And he is determined to wreak vengeance on them and care about himself. He cared about the fact that they killed his wife, whom he loved dearly. And the story is about that chase, and it delves around themes of vengeance versus justice and rule of law versus vigilantism. And
why cold powder?
The weapons at the time used black powder. But when it's not fired, it's cold.
Okay. I see. So can you tell us the main character in Cold Powder? Tell us about the main character.
Jediah Stone. Everybody calls him Stone except for his closest family. His wife called him Judd, but everybody called him Stone. He's that rock. He's tough. He's gritty. He doesn't know how to stop, and nothing stops him. And yet he has that deep-seated love for his wife, his murdered wife. So he had a gentle side to him, but and he's haunted by the Civil War, and she helped him through that, now that in his part of the series, you'll see.
Is this going to be a series?
This is a series. This is book 1,
Mhm.
Stone Justice book 1. 2 is in the publisher's hands. Just waiting on
Does he get his vengeance? By the end of the book,
he gets some measure of.
you're not going to tell me, are you?
I'm not. I'm not.
Stay tuned.
That's
Stay
right.
tuned.
Read the book.
Okay. Did you have to do a lot of research for this?
I did a lot of research.
Yeah?
I've been to South Dakota before, but it was many
That's
years.
my next question. Why did you pick South Dakota
Um,
and not the South, or not?
everybody writes about that. That's where a lot of Westerns are set, right?
Right.
They're either set in Wyoming or Montana, or they're set in Kansas, or they're set in the
Right,
Southeast or
right.
Texas.
So why
It was different.
it was different?
It was different. And I'd been there, and not that I haven't been those other places. I have, but I understood the area. I understood
Mhm.
the landscape. And after I started writing it, I revisited up there. So to me, that was such a lonely place in
Mhm.
1875. I mean, really, with the exception of Deadwood, there wasn't a lot going on. It was more of a pass through, if you will. People, men looking to either mine gold in Deadwood or the Black Hills, or they were going on to Montana to mine there.
Okay.
But they didn't stick around. The ranching didn't really become as popular in the Dakotas until a few years after that. And Teddy Roosevelt visited actually had a ranch in what's now North Dakota.
Right. So what did he do for a living?
He was a homesteader.
Okay.
He planted crops,
Okay.
had a few animals, but mostly he was a cash crop. And back then you were a subsistence farmer. You planted crops to survive.
Right.
But he was, he grew up in before his father was killed, his father was a subsistence farmer in Western New York. And so he learned farming. He understood farming.
Okay.
But that's a hard place to farm.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have a Walmart.
They did not have a Walmart. And in 1874, the year before this story takes place, the locusts came through and
Okay.
wiped out a lot of farmers.
Okay.
So that's really
So does
why.
the story open with her death, or does
The story opens with him waking up after he had discovered her body.
Okay.
We don't see the murder. We don't see
So
the
it's more.
discovery.
Is there a lot of violence in this particular story, or
There is violence, but it's not. It's not blood and gore. It's
appropriate?
I think that's a good word. I mean, even in the middle of the book, there's a huge knockdown, drag out fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's a knife fight, and my son helped me write it. He's a 3rd degree black belt, and so he and I choreographed it. But it's violent as the fight is. It's not inappropriately
Mhm.
violent.
Mhm.
So I work hard at that. Too many Westerns, especially some of the more
Yeah.
modern stuff, the violence is gory.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that.
Right. Do you outline your stories, or do you chase the wild horses and hope they don't buck?
Great line. I'm a little both. So I tend to write a chapter or two just to get a feel for the story.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will try to outline the first 25 to 30%. I'll write from there, and then I'll try and outline the last few chapters so I know where I'm headed.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, I have a good sense of what's going on. And then the rest of it is just kind of pantsed. But I do know where I'm going. It's not like I don't have a roadmap.
Okay, so when you're drafting, are you more preacher at the pulpit, or are you referee with a whistle?
I am. I will answer this carefully. I'm not preachy, but I definitely am that preacher storyteller that can embellish situations. When you're refereeing soccer, that whistle, you're just stopping the violence. You're stopping with the action, slowing it down. I don't do that. There is this book and my subsequent work. It's action from start to finish.
To keep your reader engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you need to. Do you secretly enjoy rewriting, or do you fight it like a grizzly bear?
Great. I would be the first to tell you that I actually enjoy the rewriting process more than I enjoy
So does
the
he.
creation process.
I hate rewriting. Once I've got it on paper, I'm done. I'm out of here.
I have
I hate the rewrite.
I have bookends that my wife made for me
Mhm.
on my research bookshelf, and they say line from Hemingway: "Write drunk, edit sober." I probably tend to reverse that.
I like that. Right, drunk, edit sober. I
Yeah.
like that. Oh, I love that. Yeah,
That works too.
that does
Yeah.
work too.
Reverse. Yeah.
It does. But I am not somebody that likes the editing process. It drives me crazy. Whereas he will edit and edit and edit and edit, and
That's
he loves it. And I am just like, if I have to look at this thing one more time, I am going to yell.
I do understand that. Oddly, when I first moved to St. Louis back in '93, I worked for a not-for-profit, and a lot of the senior staff were writers. I was the only non-writer on the senior staff, and one of the secretaries said to me one day, she said, I have to watch how often I hand a document back to, and she named the senior staff member, and because if I don't, he will edit it to death. He will never stop editing. He was an inveterate editor. And what I found interesting about it, she said she one day compared his first draft with his final draft before she stopped him,
Mhm.
and they were almost identical. So, I do try to be careful of that. Typically when I write, that first draft is just bones. And then the next day I'll go back.
Mhm.
And when I go back that next day, I'm reading it over and I'm filling out the bones, the
Mhm.
skeleton. And then I'll go back a day after that and fill out the skeleton some more.
Mhm.
Yep. And that tends to be my process.
Yeah.
So by the time my first draft is done, it's actually a third draft.
Right. You've given me a quote, and let's take a look at it. Okay.
Mhm.
Stone glowered. Let's start again. Stone glowered at the lawman. You know how I feel. Was your wife just murdered? He clenched his jaw to bite back again. Angry retort. Look here. Price has got to handle this. I ain't got the authority to take a posse out. Sides, we know where they're heading. I'm not waiting. Stone's voice grew colder than a Dakota winter. With you or without you, Burke? Tell me about that.
So Stone is he's still in his homestead.
Mm-hmm.
His murdered wife is
Laying
still
there.
laying there, waiting for the town people to come out with a wagon to
Take her.
take her, and waiting. He's been injured, so he's waiting for them to take him to the doctor's office as well. And the town sheriff, whose last name is Burke, everybody called him Burke. He was telling him that he's got to wait for the posse. Price is the
Right.
U.S. Marshal for the territory.
Mm-hmm.
When he gets here, then he can form a posse and go out.
Mm-hmm.
And Stone, because he's Stone, and I'm not waiting, I'm going. And what eventually happens is the doctor, who's an old Bostonian, served in 3 wars,
Mm-hmm.
Settles him down, encourages him to wait until the body is buried so he can be there for that,
Yeah.
which, back then happened very quickly.
Right.
and gave the doctor a chance to tend to his wound and etc. And then he went out behind the town marshal's back.
Ah.
So that's what that is. That's
Okay.
the gist of that.
All right. And that's the start. That's the beginning of your book.
That is page, I don't know, 20 or 23. So yes, it's early
fairly
on.
early on.
Very early on.
Okay. And then
Yep.
the other one that you gave me was a little bit later in the book, right?
Other way around. The other one I gave you was from the very first paragraph.
Oh, okay. Hammering locomotive pistons threatened to burst through Stone's skull. Boots pounded, running, a familiar popping pressed through the murk of his consciousness. He should know the sound, but what? Something from long ago. Tell me about that.
So he's was when he discovered the body, he didn't realize there was somebody else in the room. And when he of course dashes to his wife, and he is struck with a shovel, knocked out,
So
and
it's somebody
then he's
he
shot.
knows.
This scene
Mm-hmm.
starts with him waking up, and there are bullets. The pings, those are
Because it's from long ago. But what? Something from long ago.
From long ago, referencing the war. He
Okay.
had fought in the war. It'd been so long since he had heard a gun battle and he's
Oh.
unconscious. He's just waking up. So
A
that's
familiar popping pressed through the
Yes.
murk of his. Okay.
Yep.
So that's the gun. It's the gun that he heard.
It's the gun.
Okay.
And he ends up there. Somebody else bursts into the room, and they return fire. Three strangers who are riding out over the ridge,
Mhm.
and that's who he.
Just three.
Three random strangers who were identified later as miners. They were headed to Deadwood, had stopped at the homestead, and the rest is.
So this was just random.
So in 1875, right after
Mm-hmm.
gold was discovered in the Black Hills, which was 1874 with Custer,
Mm-hmm.
Yankton, which is a few miles south of this imaginary town, began promoting themselves as a pass-through to,
Okay.
and so people would bring the boats or whatever, the train as far as Yankton, then they'd get off and travel cross country.
Okay.
And so that's who these were. They're just random men who had stumbled on the homestead.
Okay.
And the homestead is out in the middle of nowhere. 164 acres,
So
I think.
then it was like just a random. All right, you're tuned in to Author's Edge with me, Gail Freer. And if you're just joining me, I'm talking with Doug Osgood, DN Sample, about his book, Cold Powder Vengeance. When can people buy Cold Powder Vengeance, and where will it be available?
So it's available for pre-order right now
Okay.
from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or your favorite independent bookstore.
Okay. Is Cold Powder Vengeance a series?
It is a
We
series.
We did say that.
Yep, it is a series.
And when can we expect book 2? Because once we finish book 1, we're going to be biting at the bit for book 2.
So book 1 comes out this November 18th. Book 2 will come out the following November. So November of 26.
Okay. And while we wait for the release of Cold Powder Vengeance, where else can we find your work? Now, this is your first book, though.
It is my first book, but I've written short stories for Saddlebag Dispatches.
Okay.
And I've written a couple of short stories that they've published. And beyond that, local Saturday writers, their anthologies. I've had several short stories published in there.
Anthologies have you been in?
Do
you remember?
Boy,
That's okay.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Do your characters inherit your family's exaggeration?
That's a good question. Stone, no. Stone, he's too serious for that. But
What about your other characters?
Other characters, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Some.
Do you ever start writing a character and then suddenly realize you've described Uncle Bob?
Yeah, I would have to say yes.
And then have to go back and rewrite them because you don't really want Uncle Bob to recognize him?
I've not ever done that. Most of the people that I've written that I went, oh, I know who that is. They're deceased. So I don't have to worry about it. The rest of my characters
You're
tend to be,
safe then.
yeah, exactly. The rest of my characters tend to be amalgamations of a lot of people that I know. Like I think, what is it they say? The biggest piece of fiction in every novel is the phrase at the beginning of the book that says no characters living or dead. You can't write and not pull a piece from this person and that person and this one, right? I mean, it's just,
You write what you know.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Which character of yours would you least trust with your wallet?
Oh, there's a character in Cold Powder Vengeance. He is the land developer in modern, the 1870s version of that. What the railroads would do, what the government would do is lay out a plot and they would sell it to a wealthy developer who would then sell off town plots.
Mm-hmm.
And so Charles Willis he's a banker, but he's also that land developer, and he's helped develop a lot of towns in the West, homesteading towns. And so he's a little bit on the shisty side. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a couple of other characters in there that are kind of like that, or?
There's a railroad executive that
Ooh.
I probably wouldn't trust any farther than I could throw him. And he's not a very big man. Charles Willis is a really big guy, but the railroad executive is very diminutive, as I describe him.
Now, are there any romantic? Does Stone get involved in any romantic involvements?
He does. So partway through, he is captured by Indians, Sioux warriors, and he meets a widow, a Sioux widow, who happens to be a chief's daughter, and she's age-wise pretty close, and so they develop over the time in the book, and then in subsequent.
It's going to further develop.
It is going to further develop.
Okay.
So Dancing Waters is her name, and so there's definitely.
So why does he get captured though?
So when he takes off after these murderers, he's alone, and some Sioux warriors stumble on him, and you can't be so hyper aware that you don't sleep, and so they are able to capture him while he's asleep, and then they torture him. He gets into a fight with one of their big warriors, and that's he's cross country, going cross country, and that's in 1875.
That was not what you would do.
Well,
it's not a smart move.
It certainly is not without its risks. Did people do it? Absolutely.
Yeah,
but yeah, there are risks involved, and he's not thinking about those. He doesn't care. He's got one thing on his mind, and that's bringing to justice, his own justice, probably, his wife's murderers.
If your RV could talk, would it demand co-author credit?
Probably. It's funny. We lived on the road for a year and a half and loved it. It was great fun. We had these two dogs. They were litter mates, but they looked nothing alike. They were of questionable heritage, as I mentioned, so they were mutts, is what we would.
Yeah.
That's the polite word. But wonderful dogs. But they were 80 pounds. And
80 pounds
80
each?
pounds each. Yeah. In an RV,
Lord.
fifth wheel. Fortunately, it was just the two of us, my wife and I, and we had a fairly open RV once the slides were pulled out. So but there was and I planned to write in the RV every day. Well, there was just one flaw with that theory, with that plan. When you pull into a campground, these two dogs, they didn't like, there were two things, especially motor wise, that they did not like. They didn't like diesel engines. They didn't like electric motors. What is it that every campground has tons of? Diesel motors and golf carts, electric golf carts. Every time I turned around, they were barking and closing the windows. The curtains did not stop any of that. They would just push those aside like they were rags.
Oh
and
my
bark.
goodness gracious.
So I ended up doing a lot of writing at libraries when we travel, while we were on the road. But yes, there are definitely some places where the RV would claim some co-authorship.
Oh my goodness gracious. Now you spent a lot of time out on the road, right?
We did.
And tell me about some of those travels. Can you?
Sure. So my father-in-law had leukemia, as I mentioned. And so our first assignment, after a quick assignment down in Cape Girardeau, we went to Cortland, New York, spent several weeks in Cortland, 14 or 15, something like that. Then we went to Niagara Falls, had an assignment there. That was interesting there is if you are familiar with the geography up there, there's this island, and it's huge, that sits in the middle of the Niagara River. It's called Grand Island. And there's two campgrounds on there. We picked one that loved it. It was a beautiful campground, but you from the island, you can look and see Canada. It's right there. You could almost touch it. It's so close.
Yeah, I've been to Niagara Falls.
Okay, yeah. So I mean,
yes.
it's right there.
It is. It really is.
Yeah,
it's in spitting distance.
Exactly right. It is within spitting distance. So that was a really interesting experience. From there, we went to Texas and spent 13 weeks in Texas. I did taxes because it was tax season when we got there. We stayed in a little town called Liberty, Texas. Liberty isn't much bigger than this room, but it has a campground. And our campground, most of the campers, the men worked on the oil fields or at the refineries. And so my wife worked in Beaumont, Texas. So she would pull out of the parking lot and head east to Beaumont. I would pull out in the morning and head west into Houston to do taxes. But these oil workers were wonderful people, and hardworking, long hours, hard work, but so generous and so kind. That was just an amazing experience. But in Liberty, they had this little place called the Liberty Opry, after the Grand Ole Opry, right? And we went one weekend for a show, and most of the acts were local acts that were, they're amateur acts, right? But they're fun. And then they brought in this comedian that toured casinos, and he had the greatest imitation of Mick Jagger.
Yeah,
it was great, and we laughed and laughed. So it's interesting the things you run into in these small towns.
Yeah. So how many states have you been to?
We have, between us, we've been to, I think it's like 35, 36 states. The ones we've not been to: Alaska, Hawaii, California, in the far West Coast. We've been in Montana. We've not visited Montana. On the way into Yellowstone, we took that route. But yeah, so I think in terms of actually visiting, it's somewhere in that neighborhood, 34, 35, 36, I don't know. In that neighborhood. We've traveled a lot, seen a lot.
So if our readers wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
So I have a website. It's douglasosgood.com. They can go there. douglasosgood.com. My my email address is there. They can sign up for my newsletter if they're interested. They can email me directly. And that's probably the easiest way to reach out. I do have a Facebook page. They can find me under Doug Osgood there.
Okay.
So-
DougOsgood.com.
DouglasOsgood.com.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
DouglasOsgood.com.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doug, for being on Author's Edge. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on Author's Edge on KWRH FM 929 and KXOK FM 1029. You can also hear us on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and authorsedge.org. Tune in again next week for more tips, resources, and your favorite conversations. Our next guest will be Ryan Cobb, author of The Wild Shores of Pangea. Till then, see you around the inkwell.